Right, morning guys. Welcome back to NZ Mopar Outlaw Kustoms. So I left you on a little bit of a cliffhanger. This wouldn't run last night before I went home. So Dad come round. I didn't film any of it. We actually put a fresh set of plugs in it, and obviously did a couple other things. But what we actually figured out is it's a carburetor that's giving us the problems, and it's been a bit finicky right from the word go when we put it back on. Well, we obviously, even now and again, it'll just keep flooding itself, and then you'll use it and it's fine. You know, you can leave the tap on when you stop it, and it'll sit there for 10-15 minutes and never flood itself, you know, and you turn the tap off and it's fine. But what it did yesterday was it wouldn't let fuel in. We actually pulled a couple of little bits out of the side of the main bowl where the float is, and we gave the float a wee tap with the bottom of the screwdriver, and away it went. You know, the fuel started flowing back in it and flowed out the little orifices, so we put them back in and cranked up while it went, after we'd mucked around with it a little bit. So it wasn't a biggie, but it's an absolute pain in the ass if you want to move it or whatever. So what today's plan is, because I don't want to be here for long because I want to go to this car show, as much as I would like to stay here and start sanding, which I probably will do this afternoon or tomorrow. I think I'm going to end up just coming back here tomorrow and just spend a full day here and start blocking out some of these pieces and see if I can get some of this other stuff ready to prime again, because these pieces actually look quite good. The hood top definitely needs a heap of primer on it. I might have to just, as much as I don't want to put body filler on it, I think I might have to, just looking at the pitting that's in it. I'll sand it off and we'll see, but I just think it might be too deep. I think I'm going to have to end up putting too much primer on it. That's about the only panel that's bad, and probably the other top. I might just have to put some glazing putty in or something, and just spread it over it really thin, like super thin, just to fill those little imperfections. A pain in the ass, but it's a bit like this here. It had to be copper coated the crap out of them, sanded back, before they could nickel plate it, which we try if you go back and look for the Studebaker video, Copper Mountain. That's kind of what happened to that, but that actually all got taken back off again by the people that did it the second time, because it was peeling off. The guy that did it down here wastes fucking space, basically. These guys did a beautiful job. But anyway, so that's my plan this morning. I'm going to pull the carburetor off this thing, as much as I don't want it off, because I'd like to be able to move it in and out until it goes for upholstery. And we did last few, maybe get some extra things done to it before it goes away for upholstery. But it'd be just nice to have it mobile, so I can just fire it up, drive it out, spread the panels out, do whatever I'm going to do. Once I'm finished priming or whatever, you know, I can move stuff out of the road and bring it back in. Eventually, it'll be out of here completely. There's actually going to be over by the house, the owner's house of this shed, which I'm working in, which owns the Studebaker. He's going to build a 12 metre by 12 metre shed, I think, whatever it is. Somewhere about there, he's got another couple of old cars, I think, that he wants to store in there, plus maybe some other stuff. So, yeah, I think it's even going to be heated, so they're always in nice temperature, if you know what I mean. So they're not getting the extremes, to try and keep moisture out of the motors and all that sort of stuff. Not that it gets really hot and cold here. Super stream, like, it does get hot, but we don't get that real super hard frosts, but it still gets cold. So I think he just wants to try and keep them in better condition. You know, get the moisture off them, keep them at a decent temperature all the time. So yeah, that's all that will go. Eventually it'll be over by their house, in the shed where they haven't built it, and then eventually I think he's talking about building a shed out here. That's if I end up staying here. Yeah, if I could get all this shed to myself, it would be awesome. But there's a few things like it would be nice to have my own shed eventually, but we'll see how that pans out. But yes, I'm going to pull the carburetor off this, and the other thing I might do, well, it depends. I might do a quick test sand, or I might do that tomorrow. I would like to just to see how quick I can spray that stuff and then sand it, because I have struck paints where sometimes you got to leave it 2 or 3 days before you can sand the stuff, because it just will gum paper up. You know, it gets all filled up and gluey. But I got a sneaking suspicion this is going to be really good. I reckon you could probably sand it within a few hours. I know Arco said that show car finish that he uses, which he absolutely loves, because you can smash it on like an 1/8 of an inch thick if you really wanted to. He said you can just pour it on and it gives no issues. Like an 1/8 of an inch is like that. He said you could just spray it on there and walk away and leave it and come back 2 or 3 hours later and start blocking it out. And he said it just gives no issues. No, it doesn't shrink, crack, do anything stupid. He says absolutely amazing. He said it's the only paint he's ever come, high build primer that he's come across that will do that. And he said he's had cars painted for 6 or 7 years now since he's been using that, and he said he never had an issue with any of them. The only paint jobs he's ever had an issue with is like somebody else's paint that's come along with, you know, because he actually painted, I was priming a truck for Terry Coverman 66, if you know him. He was doing some metal work on a truck that he bought off Arco. He did some bits and pieces to it, and then I think Summit had sent him some paint. Arco said it was actually quite nice on camera. He said he said didn't like it. Yeah, he said it wasn't very good. But he said to me, he said that it was just utter fucking garbage, that paint. He said he doesn't know whether he ended up with a bad batch of it, but he said a week later it was still filling the paper up, and he said it just took him forever to get that paint, that primer off it, to put something decent on it. He said it was just garbage. He said he'd never use it again, because I asked him, do you want to buy some more? And he said, basically he said, no, get fucked. So I don't want anything to do with it. So, yeah, he just said it was just utter garbage, utter garbage. Yeah, so if you're going to buy primer off Summit, not that I'd buy here, but if you're in the US or Canada or something like that, and you're going to buy some of that primer off Summit, be very cautious. Anyway, I'm going to pull the carburetor. I think the tyres around this are a bit flat. I think if I pump them up, it'd be a bit easier to push around. Because I'm a bit dubious putting too much in these. They're all pretty old, these tyres. They're all right, but they're pretty old. They've got a bit of cracking and stuff in them. I don't want to over push them, but I might just have to lift the pushes up on them a little bit, just to make it a little bit easier to roll around if I need to push it out in the next few days, because I just don't know sure how fast I can get this carburetor back. But I'm taking it off, dropping it off to Dad's, and he's taking it into a guy in town who's done a lot of carburetor work for the old trucks they used to work with. He's going to have a look at it, and I think he's going to make a new needle and seat and just make sure everything is working it properly. I stripped it down and cleaned it down. We had some new shafts and bits and pieces made for it, but obviously I didn't think that needle seat was that bad, but it's not happy. It's 100 years old. It's obviously a bit out of shape and bits and pieces and whatever, and it's just not working properly. So if we can get some new bits made up and get it all dialed in, and hopefully that'll be fine. And it's also running a wee bit rich, so it's probably obviously, once it gets running, it's just letting a bit much fuel through. So we'll see. But, no, it's definitely way better than it was And we had that distributor on it, runs way better than that, but it's just that carburetor just needs a little bit of finessing. So I'll get it pulled off, I'll stop yakking and get into it. Yeah, so way back I had this rebuilt in here because the shaft was all worn and loose. So we had that fixed, but everything else I thought at the time didn't look like it was too bad. Like there's a wee bit of looseness in this choke, but it's only a choke. It's not critical. Now if it happens to be closed and it's sucking a little bit extra air or around the shaft, well, it's a matter of much, it's only a choke. 9 times out of 10 it's going to be open and it's not going to make any difference. It's when it's sucking in the air in here, from in this part of it. And if it's sucking a little bit of air in here, around here, well, it's not making much difference, is it? It's up in here, as long as it's not sucking air in around that shaft, leaning it off, once it's drawing fuel from here. Is where it matters, but yeah, unfortunately we think just the needle and seat system in here is it's not playing ball, and we know these carburetors seem to be terribly easy to get. And this one's in very good condition, really, because I know who was it? Oh, it was Derek from Hombre Garage. He's got the bigger version of this, but in the truck. I think it's a big 6, and his carburetor was broken. I know he managed to find another carburetor eventually, but it took him months to find a decent carburetor for it. So yeah, but I think what we'll find here is just this here is just, it's not playing ball, so it needs to be looked at properly and with somebody with a bit more experience of rebuilding carburetors of this sort of vintage, make a few little bits for it, and hopefully it plays ball from there on. It won't take much, but yeah, it's just one of those things. You try and it's all you can do. It was worth having a persevere with it initially. We pulled it apart and had a little play with it, and we actually found this bowl here was slightly out of round. We managed to straighten that because this wasn't sitting down very well. We thought that maybe was playing up with it, but it still doesn't seem to want to just quite play ball. So yeah, we'll get the needle and seat repaired or remade or something like that, and hopefully it plays ball. But that's what people don't understand with all this old stuff. It's not a quick fix. You're rebuilding parts that 100 years old, or even 75 years old, or 60 years old. A lot of them are done a lot of miles, or they happen to be survivors, but they're just that old and gummy and dirty and whatever. You can rebuild something, but it's not until you get out and use it. You might work on it for another 3 months, just working out all the kinks and the little problems, because just bits you think, oh yeah, that should be all right, but It's one of those things, that's what people, it's like this guy, you know, he wants it painted, but I'm really scared that he's going to have to pull the whole fucking car apart to fix everything and he's going to make a mess of it, you know what I mean? Hopefully he doesn't, but yeah, it's just like some of these things, you know, you're better off to do while it's in a million pieces before it's not painted and put back together again. It's one of those things. You can do what you can do. But apparently he's got somebody else that's going to tinker with it and play with it and put it together. It must be like a family member or something like that loves playing with the old stuff as well. But yeah, they're going to fix all the wiring and get it running and driving properly and whatever. But I think they're going to end up with a whole headache. They have to pull the motor and gearbox and everything out of it, and because I'm sure once it's running and driving and hot and tootling around, once the oils get thin from heat, you know, and put fresh stuff in it, I think it's just going to piss all everywhere and make a fucking mess. So, I don't know. It may not, but I don't think it's been driven around for a long time, so it probably hasn't run for long, you know. But it happens to be tooting around, even if it's like somewhere like here, taking around, you know, if it starts pissing frickin' shit and everywhere, well, you know, it is what it is. And I've just noticed something on the old Studebaker. I'm going to have to, at some point, get in and try and readjust that steering box. Now that it's had a bit of a drive around, that's all sort of like loosened up and worked into position, and it's got quite a bit of play and needs all readjusted. You know, it's one of those things, you just, until it's got a bit of movement and driving around, until it sort of finds its happy place, you know, and now it needs retweaked and whatever. So, anyway, I'll go and drop this off to the old man, and yeah, we'll see you back here tomorrow. Sorry. And later on today with the car show. So I'll go do that, and yeah, whatever. See ya later. Right, morning guys, hopefully you can see me there. You can't see me all right. So I'm just going to start blocking the stuff back. I'm not using the paper I want to use on here because I bought myself a glue stick the other day, just one of those kids' glue sticks for gluing on paper, but just so I could put it on the back of my 3M, just normal sheet stuff, and put on this block. But you think I can find it after I moved everything the other day to prime all this stuff? I've hunted and hunted and hunted. It would have fallen. It's obviously, I don't know whether I've knocked it off a bench or something like that. I'll have to have another good hunt for it later on. But I got this 240 sticky back roll stuff. I just don't like it very much. It's okay. It doesn't last long in days, but it's a problem. But we'll give this primer a sand. Okay, it's Monday morning. I was going to come down here yesterday, but Mrs. just wasn't feeling very good, so I stayed home and she went back to bed a couple of times, and I just made sure the young fella wasn't getting up to mischief. So I don't think that really down here. If she was okay, I probably would have come back down, but I did think about it a couple of times, but her health just hasn't been terribly good lately. Like she was in hospital there a month or so ago. The heart problems, enlarged heart, and water on or fluid on the lungs and stupid shit like that. I think it's a bit of a reaction from the frickin' shit and frickin' arm we've all had. Well, that a lot of us have had it in the last 3 years, 2 years, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, but I'm gonna get sanding on here, see what this block's out like, see what this primer looks like, what block's out like. I just think it should be okay. I'm not going to be terribly worried about the performance of this paper, but once I've used it for a while and it's gone off, I'm hoping that if I heat this up with my heat gun, the residue normally stays in the block, and then you can normally stick paper to it. But I've had mixed results lately because this rolls of paper is close to a couple of years old now, so maybe it's lost its adhesion after you pull it off when you heat it up. I just don't know where that glue stick went, because it was working really well. I was using it the other day. I just put a bit more glue on here and just slapped another piece of paper on it while it went. But yeah, I don't know where it's gone. Anyway, start sanding and see how we get on. Righty, hopefully you can see there right. I might just lift you up a little bit. And just point you a little bit down more. Try and get a slightly better view. So I've blocked this out with 240, 220, 240. So basically knocked it down to where I thought it was pretty good. And then I gave it a quick mist with a different colour and let it dry off, and I just blocked it off. And you can see there's just a few little dark patches where it's still got a few, I guess, scratches, and there might be some odd blemishes, but I really cannot feel them at all. So that's had, what we say, borderline 3 coats, I guess. It had a medium-ish one for a start off, and then had a couple of reasonables. So that's all that's on here. Like, there's no point sanding back any further. I've got a little bit of cleaning up to do around the other side, and we'll give it a light rub around the other side maybe. On the underside, I'm not too worried about the underside. It'll just get a nice sand back and it'll be painted, unless there's something I really see needs fixed, but maybe with a little glazing putty or something like that, just to make it look a bit tidier. But yeah, I think I'm pretty good. Needs wee light sand around the edges, but I think, I'm hoping, just with what I can see, except for maybe just, there might be something along here, this edge, I have to have a better look. But just generally, from here to here, it looks pretty good. I think if I can get another, when we do the next prime, I think another 3-4 coats, blocking back again to almost this level. Hopefully we don't have to have so much steel showing to get it back to pretty good, but I think if I do that again, it should be pretty good. And then basically then after that we'll get everything back to that level, and then I think it'll just be a couple of light coats over top, a very light sand with some 600 or something like that, maybe even wet and dry, just to glaze it off, and then we'll just blow the colour on. It's kind of all I've got time for, if you know what I mean. I think if every panel turns up like this for this first 240, 220 block back, we should be in pretty good shape. As long as everything turns out like this, another three or four coats over top, block back, it should be pretty nice. And it's not going to take much to do it. So that's the first one. The only thing I do need to do is just make sure the hinge fits, make sure we've got all the shit cleared out of there. But apart from that, I think it'll be pretty nice. Unless we, no, apart from that, maybe, I don't know if there needs much to be done around here. But it needs sanded back properly. And it's only really a wee bit on this top edge. Well, you don't really see any of it. I probably could put some, I might smear a little bit of glazing putty in some of these holes where I've already cut those holes out, or somebody else cut those holes out and I filled them in. But it just needs a light sand and a clean up, and then you know, when we do the couple of coats on the outside near the end, we'll give it another one on the inside just to tie it out and paint it. Like the door panel goes over top of it, it had big holes in it beforehand, so it should be pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm glad none of these spots turned out huge. You really feel them, which is a good thing. None of them are really super proud. I think there's like another 2 or 3 or 4 coats over top from the next one. And block about probably, I might jump to straight 400, I think. With that many coats, there shouldn't be any sandy marks coming through. And yeah, block it back with 400, and then yeah, right at the end another couple, and just give it a quick wee wet sand with some 600 just to smooth her off on a small hand block, and blow a green and black. You know, I'll start on the next one. I'll just dial this in a little bit, and around here, well, we might have to put a little bit of glazing putty just in a couple of wee spots like this, just to tidy it up before we do put another couple of coats on it for the next stage. But yeah, that door looks pretty good to me. I wouldn't mind getting it back a little bit further, but I don't think it's necessary. Otherwise I'm going to end up with big funny bare patches, and it'll start look, when you put the next coats on, it'll be weird. You may as well just leave that there, and I think whatever's there should be taken up. It should be fine. So we'll leave it there. No point going silly. Everything else, like this, a few little spots and bits and pieces, but I don't think it'll all, by the feels of it, it'll all take up. I just have to see it a little bit further through here, but you know, like there's just a little bit of dial, and around the edges, I could just run around the edges a little with a little bit of sandpaper and just feather the edge back a little bit towards the edge. But it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's not dead perfect, but it's pretty good. Pretty good for the first block with primer on, so I'm happy. Righty, so I'm on a front door. I've got the other 2 doors done. I've got a couple of little marks I've got to fill, just very small ones in the other one. But I'm just starting on this one to get that knocked down. See where we're at. You can see the big thing is use the texture of the primer. When you're at this point, use the texture of the primer as your first guide. You just keep going until you can get rid of almost everything you can see, and then if you know you can go a bit more, which, you know, when you get into this sort of stage, you've got to stop. Obviously it depends. Like if you got a few marks over the side, you can keep going, but try not to go back over to here. Sort of come part way across and then come back. Don't go fully into here, otherwise you'll just keep taking the primer and the filler away from that area where it's probably okay at the moment. But you know, like there's a few marks like this. You know, I can keep working in this area as long as I'm not digging myself a hole. Use because I just had was it Robert from Vino Rat Rods? He's just saying, like, because I don't know how much body work he's done before. I don't know. But he's doing a really good job on that hot rod that he's building, rat rod, what do you want to call it. I suppose it depends on what sort of style he's building, but you know, use as long a block as possible. I would like a longer one of these, one that's, I think it's double that length, or it might be half that length again. I would like a longer one. That's why I also like using you know, that, or my especially when you're doing that first layer body filler. Now once you've pounded, you know, what you think all your dents are out of, you know, hit with your body filler, get a long block like that one, or even one of these, you know, if you've got something like that or something that length. Obviously it depends on what sort of panels you're doing too, and what sort of vehicle you're working on. You just use the longest block you can, obviously within reason. You know, if you've got like swages here, well, you can't do that. You got to work within the body, like, you know, on this one here. You know, you're running up against a thing, so you can't push past it. You got to try and work around it. But you know, it is what it kind of is. What it is. Like every panel's different, every car's different. But yeah, get the longest block you can. So like on here, you know, that's almost the full width. And that's probably not a bad size block. a little longer maybe, but that's probably about close to perfect for this sort of panel doors. Like on here, ideally something a little longer than that would be good, you know, even that long, because you're trying to get it as flat and as straight as possible. So the longer the block, the better, as long as the panel's reasonably at least flat in one plane, or close to flat in one plane, if you know what I mean. If it's got big curves in it, well then you might need to go to something more like this instead of a rigid block like that is. These are semi-flexible, but this is really flexible. So you could, if you had like a more rounded but like long body panel, I guess you'd call it, sort of like the back of the body, where it's got a bit more shape to it, and slightly more flexible block but still rigid would be better, you know, especially with, you know, sort of like, you know, if you're starting somewhere around that sort of 40 to 80 grit, or, you know, it would be, on most paper it would be P80 or whatever, or P60, so in here, so you have P60. Most sandpapers or abrasives or whatever you want to call it have got a P in front of them. So yeah, like I would normally start with somewhere between 80 to 40 grit from a first initial block out with body filler, whatever you're doing. Knock that back. Obviously keep blocking that, fill your panel, whatever. If you find any highs in the metal, if you can, knock them down. Don't wow them, just tap them down. Pull those little high spots down. Keep blocking until you get your panel where you're happy with it. No major holes or chunks in your body filler or whatever. As long as your body filler is not super thick, you know, try and get it as thin as possible, ideally, because you don't want a big massive, you don't want like a half an inch freaking, or a quarter of an inch, or even an eighth of an inch of body filler, you know, at the edges. You've got to get it as thin as possible. So if you get high spots in the middle, for some reason, well, yeah, you need to go back to metalwork. But if you've got your panel and it's reasonably flat, you know, you might have the old little high spot, tap it down, keep blocking until you know, and apply a few more coats of body filler or putty or whatever you need to do to get that panel to block out flat. And then, you know, hit it with, I guess, sort of, I would initially go sort of 2 or 3 coats, get a reasonable build up on there. This is where you're going to find whether how flat your panel is. Like, I don't want to be using that. I'll put it away, otherwise I might pick it up and tear into my primer. But yeah, then jump to like 240, 220, somewhere around that sort of ballpark. I have heard guys, you know, sort of go in between sort of like 120, 180. It just depends on what works for you. I find 240 is normally good enough. 240, 220, which is normally what I work with. Just depends on the brand of paper, what it is. But somewhere around that ballpark, block her out. Get it as flat as possible. Try and get rid of all the little marks. You know, with the edge is a little bit high in here. So I might be able to come down and just maybe knock those edges down a little bit. Can't go aggressive, otherwise you're going to screw yourself up. But I might just better tap that edge down. It's obviously a bit high compared with the rest of the panel. So then I might better get in and get some of this bit further down and block it out. You know, we've got a few little low spots. But that's what we're going to try and do. Get it down as far as possible. You know, I might have to come in here with a little bit of glazing. Some of these. But the rest of it I might better just get out, block out. So it's close enough. And then with another 3 or 4 coats on top, you're blocking out again. Like, you're not taking that out. So the 3 or 4 tops will sit on that. And hopefully by the next time, it's almost dead flat perfect. Or if it's not dead flat perfect, at least it'll be, you better get it reasonably smooth. If you can get it back, block back, so it's almost nice, you might better go back to a slightly shorter block. It mightn't be dead flat perfect, but it'll be a really nice driver, and just block it out until you get rid of the last of the marks, as long as you're not digging holes. I mean, like maybe a short block like that, you might better just finish it off. If you've still got like a few little fine marks that aren't deep, that don't need major fill or glazing putty, you might better just block blast it out with that to smooth it out. It'll still be really nice. It just won't be that dead flat, dialed straight perfect, you know, but you'll get it pretty nice. But if you can get everything out with a long block, sort of like that, or a bit longer, depending obviously your panel, and obviously depending on whether it's really curved like that, then you're into different things. But basically same principle. You might just have to go back to a shorter block, just blocking around that corner. But try and crisscross as much as you can, you know, backwards, forwards, crisscross. You'll get it down smooth and flat. And yeah, put your next few coats on, jump to like 320, 400, and then if you have to do another couple of primes on top of that, you know, maybe a wet sand with 600 or something like that. And then obviously depending on what you're putting on top too. You know, if you're putting like a real fine metallic or something like that on it, whatever, you might have to be careful because some colours show worse than others, but 9 times out of 10, you know, sort of 600, as long as it's all real nice out, blocked out, smooth, you know, no bare metal showing, start smashing your colour on and you'll be done. So anyway, we'll, you know, and then you clear coat after that, as long as you don't end up with runs and stuff in your colour. But yeah, it's pretty much how you do it. You just got to work with it, you know, fill the marks that you know you can't get rid of, or if they're really just fine, they might come out with another 3 or 4 coats of hide build and just block it back again. It's kind of what you got to do. Anyway, catch you later. Cheers. Righty, so I'm just sanding one of the hood tops. I'm just trying to get some of the stuff sanded so I can get these longer ones up on the panel stands. Actually not coming out too bad considering how pitted it was. The primer's filling actually pretty well. Yeah, like I'm starting to get thin in places, but I'll go a bit, obviously quite a bit further yet. I'll go as far as I can to try and fill as many marks as I can. I think I might get away with it, to be honest. We'll find out once we sand a bit further. We might get it with another couple of, if I put, you know, 3 or 4 coats on here, we might get everything out, which will be bloody absolutely awesome without having to put body filler on here at all of any stretch. There may be the odd little pinhole maybe right at the last that we might have to just fill. Actually probably what I'll do is when I get to the end of this, we'll have a really good clean up and we'll just, if there's anything that looks exceptionally deep, we might fill. But if I go back over to this other one, which I haven't done anything with yet except for a little repair, I'm not sure if I covered that or not. I don't know if I did actually. So yeah, I welded that back on Friday, I think. So they're actually quite good on the inside. It's actually not that bad, but when you get it over to the other side, it doesn't actually show up that bad here, but you can see some quite heavy pitting in places. This one's probably not quite as bad as the other, but it's similar. So yeah, that primer does a reasonable job of filling in the imperfections. So far I'm pretty impressed with that primer. It sands nice. It's not difficult to sand. I would definitely recommend it. But yeah, it's I found this was very, very, very thick in the bottom. So it definitely needs a really good stir. But so far, that's probably the best primer I think I've probably used in recent years. I don't even know if there's a can down there anymore, is there? Well, it doesn't matter anyway, but this brand here, the primer that went with that, because I don't think I've got a can here. I think it's all paint. It's not actually primer, but yeah, that stuff there was okay, but it was very sticky, and like everything stuck to the panel afterwards, and it took a couple of days, 3, 4 days at least minimum, before you could sand it without it filling paper. I reckon I probably could have sanded this the next day. I actually wish I had a wee play of it on Saturday morning, but I didn't. I just had to, like I had other stuff I wanted to do and I didn't hang around because my dad was going into town with that carburetor, which is now fixed. So we're going to pick that up too. I'm not sure if I've mentioned that yet. But anyway, I'm about to go for lunch. Come back, we'll keep blocking. So I've got the 4 doors blocked. There's the odd little imperfection we'll have to catch with some glazing putty, but generally they're pretty sweet. Like there's no major, nothing major. Like there's a couple little nicks on the odd one, where we just haven't quite got enough filler in the odd spot. Like so, even that there we'll probably take up with primer. There's like a little, I don't know if you can see, there's like a little dark spot there. You can feel it with your finger, if you know what I mean. But apart from that, there's a couple of little pieces in the corner which you could probably block out a little bit further. There are a couple of slightly worse ones on those back ones, but these front ones are pretty good. I don't think there's anything there that is really going to take much to fill. I think there's a low spot in one of these top pieces which I've got to put a bit more putty in, but apart from that, yeah, we're pretty good. So far we're looking good. So we'll probably block that out after lunch once we've got this one a bit further down. And then we'll start on these. So basically this is going to take me all day just to block these just once. So this is where all the time goes, like the whole day, me just blocking these by hand. And then you got to spend another day setting them up and priming them all again, and then another day sanding, without doing anything else. Before we know it's going to be Friday again. So anyway, we'll get onto it. We'll see you after lunch. Righty. So we're down to the last panel, apart from the back of the body. So I've done everything else that I've primed, obviously. I haven't touched the back of the body yet, but it's I don't know, 4:30ish, thereabouts, PM. So the rest of the panel actually looks quite good. All the top, I haven't sanded down the flat of the side yet on the far side, on here. I haven't sanded down there. There's a few spots that need, I guess, a little something, little glazing putty or whatever. I knew there's bound to be something, but generally it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. I knew there was going to be something, and that's kind of why this is the first prime set back down. You always miss something. There's always something somewhere. And you don't always know exactly how it's going to block out with that first hit after body filler and sand out. You try to get it to the point where it looks reasonable. It feels reasonable, but sometimes it's just not always that easy. It's like through here. When I first started sanding this, it actually looked quite rough, but now we've got a lot of primer off it, and we're starting to get down to some of the underlying body filler. Again, I'm going to have to hit with a little bit with some glazing putty in a few spots. I think there might be the odd spot in here, which I don't think I'll panic, because that piece covers. But if it's bad, I'll put a little of something in it. But yeah, I'll keep blocking back here. Like there's a funny spot here which might end up being too low. Another wee spot here. There's a couple of spots out here too which I might better block 90% of it out. We might just have to put a little bit of something in. But it's kind of is what it is. You try and find out how flat it is, how bad it is. You kind of, I knew it was reasonable. It's just a matter of blocking it out and then seeing what you got to play with from there. A little bit of glazing putty, an extra, 3 or 4 layers, and hopefully next time when you block it out, it's going to be better. It's got to be better because you've already knocked all the hard shit off it using a block. In theory, so. But the rest of it actually looks really good. There's a few little marks on this piece, but that's about it. It's just a matter of just getting it all blocked out and seeing where you are, And how far can you take it down before you start running into too much steel. Get a little bit coming up in spots. Funny enough, and around that sort of centre here, it's not actually that bad. A little bit out here, it needs a bit more of a block, but just keep trying to do what you can do, you know. Kind of expected to have to fill a little bit here. Just nature of the beast sometimes. That's why you block it out. On it where it's still not right. I got pretty lucky with all the other panels, all pretty good. There's little spots, this is going to be the worst. Two front fenders and probably the rear fenders will be probably the worst. Just because they're awkward sort of, I wouldn't say awkward shapes, but just there's more shape to them. Funny edges and corners and here's what it is. I still got to put that bead roll in here yet. I'm hoping my dies might turn up. I know I'm not going to get it finished before I have to go do some work somewhere else, but I'm not stressing about it now. I just no way I'm going to get it a whole lot blocked and primed twice and painted within this week. It's not going to happen. I'll get close, but it ain't going to happen. It is what it is. Oh well, that's me today, right here. Right, morning everybody. Welcome back again. We're getting close to the end of this video. The sanding video kind of were quite long yesterday. But anyway, I've got the carburetor back. I think I mentioned that yesterday, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I showed you. Not there's much to see, it looks the same. But I'm going to throw that back on. Quickly give this a test run, make sure it works okay. Because also I want to put in, once I get that on, I want to put a little bit of glazing putty in. The worst is I've still got to finish sanding this front fender, or mudguard, and the back of the body. I'd like to get some glazing putty in the bits where it needs, and some of the other stuff, so I can knock that back. And if I get the opportunity, I'd like to put a wee bit of filler in the front of this body and knock that back. And if I get the chance, I wouldn't mind priming some stuff again, because that means that some of this stuff will be near paint stage. Obviously, you know, you leave it sit for a day or so. That'll give me an opportunity to get this other stuff finished. That'll give me an opportunity to block back the body in between times. So I'll give the body a couple, 3 coats like I did initially with this, the front. I'm not too worried about re-priming the back of the body. If I can, I will, but if I can't, I won't. But I wouldn't mind getting the balances and the doors and other bits and pieces in another coat, or another 3 or 4 coats. once I've got a little bit of putty in them and knock that back off. So I'm expecting to maybe prime the stuff this afternoon. We'll just see how that falls, and then I'll probably shoot back down a little bit later on in the day. Like probably after, maybe 6 or 7, move the stuff back out of the road and bring this back in so it's not sitting outside all night. But I just would like to get the carburetor on, fire it up, make sure it's not going to flood itself or anything silly. That'll only just tell time. It should be good. I'm not exactly sure what all he's done to it. Without pulling it apart, I don't really know, but I see there's a couple of little bits in a bag that looks like he might have remade some other bits as well in it, so I don't really know. Actually, it might have been the pins, might have been the swing pins for the weights on the needle and seat maybe. It kind of actually looks like them. I'll show you. So there's a couple of brass pins in there. They might be, I could be wrong, but yeah, they might be the pins for the counterweights for the float. So he might have remade them and replaced them too. Just looking at them, they might be a little, don't know, they might be a little tweaked. But anyway, apparently it's repaired, so hopefully it works. Only time will tell, but yeah, it'd be nice to at least start it up, check it, move it outside. At least then I've got a bit more space again if I want to prime a wee bit later on. I'm guessing this afternoon was kind of what I'm thinking. Be nice to get another 3 or 4 coats on these things, then hopefully they're basically on the second to last final block. We'll block them out and then I'll get another couple of light coats when everything else is ready, and then we'll just give them a very light sand with 600 wet and dry or something like that, and then we'll just be blowing colour on. We'll see. We might, I don't know, we may be really close by early next week to paint the stuff. We mightn't be far away. I might better pull this off. It might take me a few. I'm going to have to go work somewhere else unless I can get something else in here to make some extra cash. Yeah, but I might have to work for a wee while somewhere else and just jump back here at night, some bits and pieces, and get it bolted back together. I'd also like to knock back the back of that chassis with that fuel tank pieces, so when I paint this stuff black, I've got a chance to put another few coats in that. I might even, if I get a chance, what I might actually do is take out a whole lot of the back of that, but just maybe give it a quick rub back with maybe some 320 wet and dry or something like that. Just give it a really quick hard rub back, or even some 240, and maybe just flick 2 or 3 coats of primer on the back of that too. And then when I paint it black, I can mist it all back in, if you know what I mean. Just to give me an opportunity to make sure the back of that chassis looks good too, over top of that tank mount, because it's a bit pitted. It's a bit like the hood tops. It's a bit pitted in places. I just poured the paint on there just to try and make it look good and get the rest of the chassis, but I knew I was going to have to rub it back and blow another couple of coats on it. But if I can maybe put a couple of coats of primer on and then block it back again and then put some black on it, well, at least then I know it'll look good. So yeah, we'll try and get that to the end of the day. If not, I'll get it tomorrow morning or something like that. But that's the plan for today. I'll stop waffling. I'll get this carburetor on. Yeah, I'll get the carburetor on, then I can bring everything else out, get the south sorted, work out what bits I need to put glazing putty in. I might go around with a pencil or a marker or something, just circle all the bits I need to put glazing putty in. I'll finish sanding this front fender, we'll do all that, and yeah, at least then we might get some of this shit primed, yeah, a second time, which would be awesome. Yeah, if I can. Right, we'll get to it. Alright, carburetor's back on. I'll just turn the fuel tap on. Let's just see what happens here. Set you up on the tripod. Yeah. Right. Turn the ignition on. Hopefully. Ignition should be on. A little bit of throttle, a little bit of jaw. Let's see if run. That's a good start. To replace the fan back because it's fallen to pieces. Shouldn't have, but it has. Good thing I've got two. Carburetor adjustment. It works still. Now I can get that saw down in it. Righty, got a quick update for the day, I guess. I haven't done hardly any videoing at all. I've done a bit of sanding, put a bit of glazing putty in a couple of times. I was hoping to prime, but I just haven't quite got there. I haven't put any more body filler in the body, in the front. I was hoping to do that too, but I just haven't got there. I've just been sort of going around and sanding, just doing all these little bits of glazing putty and shit, just trying to really pick things up. My dies from a die grinder turned up too. Not my die grinder, but freaking for the bead roller, which is absolutely awesome because I hadn't had a chance to take them around to the other place. So at least I got them here now. I can do it here, which is really cool. I was hoping they might have turned up because I looked the other day and it said they were in New Zealand. So that was quite a few days ago. So that was cool. Yeah, man, I've just had one of those days where I've just found it hard to keep going. I just keep puddling away with this frickin' glazing putty, and I blocked a bit more stuff out. I blocked the back of the body out, which just seemed to take forever. And frickin', I don't know, man. I just got no frickin' energy in my arms at all, and it sucks because I don't like being like that. But jeez, man, every time I go to frickin' sand the back of this body, my frickin' arms are just so heavy. From all the frickin', I think from all the sanding over the last few weeks. And I've done a bit more to that other front guard that I haven't got primed yet. I've got that, I wouldn't say dialed in, but I've got it cleaned up a lot better than it was. I just put some more glazing putty in it. So yeah, I'm hoping that maybe in the morning, because I'm also waiting on Dad to come back. He took the generator away. He pulled the generator off the old studio and took that into town to talk to we'll go see a guy that's about the only person now that's can frickin' test a generator, would you believe? Like it used to be quite common that, most guys, a lot of auto electrical places could still test generators, but a lot of older school ones have disappeared. Like there's quite a few auto electric places that were been around for a long time. Up until like I was in my mid-20s or even into my 30s, but in the last sort of 15, 20 years almost, it disappeared. Which kind of sucks. Like it's sort of like some of them have disappeared and then they've like become some of the people that were involved in it and like started new businesses, and they've got rid of a lot of the old stuff that they never really used to use, like for testing generators and doing windings and all that sort of shit. So yeah, it sucks because a lot of that old stuff disappears, and then you get people like us, all of a sudden you got to send the frickin' thing to 2 or 3 specialists around the countryside, and they charge a fucking fortune for it. But Dad knows of a guy that still does that and might do it from home, I think, like retired sort of guy that obviously used to have a lot of that gear, and he obviously still has, fortunately. But yeah, Dad's taking into him. But the only other, I thought we had extra generators, but I think it might have been starters. But there's one up in that car. There's one in that car if we desperately need it for parts. But I don't like the chances with that because it's full of fucking mud and all sorts of shit. So hopefully it can be sorted to run properly so it charges. Yeah. It's funny because it motorizes. Like if you put power to it and spin it like a motor. Normally if a generator spins like a motor, it'll generate power when it's driven. And a motor, like an electric motor, will do the same thing. If you spin it not under its own power, it'll generate current. It kind of works the same way, if you know what I mean. So it's weird that it's not working, or it's not generating. So hopefully it won't take much to get sorted. But yeah, as long as we don't need a whole heap of new parts for it. But yeah, because the old studio's stuck outside now. That's kind of what I didn't want to happen, but maybe if he gets it sorted, we might better just pop it back on and then drive it inside. We might better drive it inside anyway, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I just don't want to drive it too far with that not being in there, because it goes in the back of that oil housing. That's where you pour the oil into it. Is that generator bolts onto the back of that and goes through that drive system, through where the all that drive comes through, and the distributors all driven through there, and the oil pump and all that sort of stuff's all driven through that main drive piece that comes down right through the water pump and everything on that one side. That's all driven through that same thing. So it's kind of open when it's not there, that's not on the end of it, which is not an ideal thing. It'd be alright just to turtle it in here, but it's one of those things you just don't want it to be pissing all everywhere. But yeah, so I'm half expecting the missus to turn up shortly, and she's going to bring the dyes with me because they turn up at home, which is fucking awesome. I'm just glad they didn't take too long. I thought they might have got fucking stuck in the freight system up north, but fortunately they've come in so and got delivered, so it's cool. And she better hopefully dial that in the morning. I might even get her to come back down just to give me a hand to handle the stuff once I've worked out how to do it, because it's only like that 2 little short pieces, but about 4 inches long on each front fender. But I'll have a play on a couple of bits of steel just to see how it works first, just to get a feel for it and what I need, and just make sure I can dolly around the end of it and don't distort shit too much. But anyway, we'll catch you later on. Cheers. Yep.